welcome everyone. My name is Doug Koob, and I'm going to kick things off today. And I'm a Starbucks alumni, and I was a partner with the company for 23 years, from 1990 to 2014. And I held a variety of business development and leadership roles with the company in the US and in Europe. I'm originally from Seattle, but now I live here in San Francisco, and I'm the founder of Circle Alliances, which is a consulting company, and I do strategic planning and business development for food and beverage brands and concepts. Welcome to another Green Apron Alliance event. Today's virtual webinar is part of the We Move Forward series for the month of May. And the title of our discussion today is What's Your Pivot? We're living in unprecedented times, and many people are at a crossroads in their career, and they're looking to reset their professional journeys. What's your pivot is personal to all of us. And I thought I'd just share a quick story about a pivot that I made in my own career before we move along with today's program. So again, I spent a couple decades at Starbucks and had just an amazing journey. I count my blessings every day for that opportunity. And I decided in 2014 I was going to leave, and I left, and I went and did a couple other things that were really great for me. One of them for a year and a half, and another one for about 6 months, and had some really great experiences and pivoted in a real big way away from Starbucks to much different organizations, much different cultures, different leadership groups, obviously, different roles. And it was really challenging to do. And it was like jumping off a cliff a bit. But, you know, as I sit here today in 2020, I'm super happy that I did, because it's really opened up a whole lot of other possibilities for me in my career, both personally and professionally. And about 4 years ago, I started my own company, and it's Circle Alliances, and I do strategic planning and business development for emerging food and beverage brands and concepts. And I shared this story a bit a year ago at the first Inspired Stories event in Seattle on Capitol Hill at the Riveter. So some of you may have heard this before, but I just thought I'd share it again for those of you who weren't there. I went, my first job after Starbucks was great for a lot of reasons, but it was in Florida, and I was on an airplane to Florida every week, which was a little bit too much for me. So then I went to something local, 15 miles from my house here in Silicon Valley. And that was great for some reasons because it was close to my house, but it really wasn't the right cultural fit for me. And so I left in a really quick period of time, and I gave the founder about 3 months notice, and I told him I was going to leave. And so the first person I called is a good friend of mine, and that person is Kim Malik, who spent a lot of years at Starbucks and is also the founder of Salt and Straw Ice Cream. And so one day I just called her when I was making this decision to maybe pivot in my life, and she said, what's up? What are you calling about? And I said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go someplace else. And she goes, where are you going? And I'm like, I really don't know. That's why I'm calling. And right away, she's like, I've always thought you should own your own company. And if you do Salt and Straw, we'll give you 4 projects. And she did. And it was the start of something really amazing for me in 2016. And since then, I've worked with about 30 different brands up and down the West Coast and in Austin and New York. And if I look at myself through that process as I pivoted, I really went through and kind of wrote a personal purpose statement and mission statement for myself and really tried to figure out what was important for me. And I'd known some amazing things from Starbucks, and I know some okay things from some other companies. And because I had that perspective of what I had for so long, although Starbucks was not perfect, we all know, but it taught me a lot. Because I had that perspective, I knew what I wanted in pivoting to start my own company. And I looked at some core values that I have for myself, which include connection, inspiration, driving results, collaboration, leadership, and exploration. So all those things that we all know so well, with the Starbucks mission and purpose being so strong, and with the core values that we all lived for so many years at Starbucks, I activated those in my own self. And I really didn't know I was doing it. I was just really writing things down that were important to me. But it took someone like Kim to inspire me, because I never in a million years thought I'd ever have my own company. And it took my wife, who's incredible, to give me the permission for our family to be able to take a chance to do that. So I just thought I would share that story with you to lay the foundation for this great conversation we're going to have the next 50 minutes. We're proud to have Linda Glass here today. Linda is an executive coach and the founder of Glass Talent based in Seattle. Linda spent 11 years with Starbucks from 1997 to 2006 in recruiting and global talent roles. We'll be talking with Linda about a variety of topics, including how we can look inside ourselves to drive our careers and our opportunities. What are we really good at? What do we need to work on? How can we develop a plan B for ourselves to pivot during the unique times like we're all living in today? Today's event is going to be moderated by Marty Fisher. Marty is the principal consultant at Star HR Partners. Marty spent about 7 years at Starbucks from 1997 to 2005. And at Starbucks, he was the director of culture and partner engagement. So Marty, thanks so much. I'll hand it off to you. And Linda, we're so excited to have you here and looking forward to the next 50 minutes of great dialogue and interaction.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Doug. And that was a great story. And a lot of it really talked about, when you talked about Kim, you talked about having a mentor. And a lot of people have talked about the importance of mentorship and one of the reasons why they joined Green Apron Alliance in the first place. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But good afternoon. Welcome to our second Green Apron Alliance webcast in the May We Move Forward series. And I'm really happy to see you again. There's some really great faces that I see out there, and so welcome. Today's topic is going to be, what's your pivot? Our world is changing every day, but what about you? Are you mentally distancing from what you were really meant to do, or maybe what you should do? Where is your career going to be when the quarantine ends? It seems inevitable that the career plan A that we created, or the one that was created for us, will at the very least need an update or maybe even a complete overhaul. So what's your pivot? How do you begin taking those first steps? Over the next 45 minutes or so, Linda and I are going to have a timely conversation about empowering yourself to dream about what's possible for the next chapter of your career, and also taking the first steps to make that happen. We're also going to be taking questions on the chat thread at the bottom of your screen. You see that in the bottom middle. You see that you can send a message to everyone or only to a specific person privately. So if you want to ask us a question, be sure to send it to everyone. Now, if you're a fan of the TV show Friends, pivot is something Ross screams when he's trying to move a couch up some stairs. Thanks, Jen Vondenbrink, for reminding me about that. That was a hilarious episode and really funny. But according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, pivot means a fixed point supporting something that turns or balances. And really, that's what we're talking about today, turning or balancing on a dime, turning away from what we've been doing, maybe all of our careers. It's also the central, most important thing in a situation. And that's what we're going to focus on today. You know, I have a story similar to Doug's. When I graduated college, I became a high school English teacher. I was an English teacher, a baseball coach, a track coach, football coach, journalism, drama advisor. I had to do everything that I could to make a living. But after 10 years of being poor, I never thought I was going to be rich by being a teacher, but I never thought I was going to be poor either. I had to make a change. And so I was thinking about, what are the skills do I have? And where can I practice those skills in a way that maybe would help my career and help me feed my family? And I came up with two solid skills that I knew that I could leverage into doing something else. One of them was writing. I've been a professional writer, magazines and newspapers around the country, really since I was in college. And after almost 11 years of teaching, I had really good teaching skills. So I decided that corporate training would be a great match. It was a totally different environment, a pivot for sure. 6 weeks later, I started my job as a trainer in the Tupperware Worldwide HR department. And that was something that really changed my life completely. And had I not sat down and thought about it, and really getting into a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Now, since the Corona outbreak, a lot of companies have had to pivot in the same way to stay alive. Here are some really good examples of companies that have pivoted. There's a company in Texas called Evo Entertainment, and they converted their parking lot into a drive-in movie theater, and they opened to the movie Spider-Man Homecoming. Every show has been sold out ever since. A lot of you know Shake Shack. Shake Shack was one of the first to launch DIY burger kits with a free cooking tutorial online. Now everyone stuck at home could recreate the legendary Shack burger. New Balance, a worldwide brand, 6 simple words. They became a company with a much bigger purpose than just selling shoes. Their purpose became making shoes yesterday making masks today.
Mm.
There was a PE teacher in the UK. His name is Joe Wicks. And in response to UK schools being canceled, this fitness instructor, Joe Wicks, started live streaming a 30-minute PE class every morning on YouTube. The whole country got behind him, and he's had more than 40 million views. There's a company called Mobile Escape in Canada, and they launched Escape Mail, an escape room style puzzle that was delivered to your door, and the demand has been so overwhelming that they've now started a subscription service. There's a company in Seattle called Snap Bar. They're an events company, and they pivoted to have gift boxes full of products from struggling local businesses. They sold 500 in Seattle. Now they've expanded to LA, San Francisco, and Portland. And maybe one of the most creative ones that I've heard is a strip club in Portland called Lucky Devil. And they transitioned to a food delivery service called Boober Eats. If you pay $30, a pair of scantily clad dancers will deliver food to your door. Now, that's a pivot. I also went on LinkedIn, and I found some really interesting, two in particular, really interesting career pivots that people have made. One was from a pilot in the UK. He said, "It's now been 5 weeks since I lost my job as a pilot and the untimely demise of Flybe. It took over 10 years to save up to achieve this dream, and I'm devastated to say the least. I'm looking forward to the next chapter whenever aviation kicks in, but in the meantime, I put myself out to do my share in helping our nation by driving a 44-ton delivery truck to keep the essentials and Tesco shelves stocked up for our British public." This one other one really hit the mark for me. He said 3 weeks apart, different aisle, different uniform, different products. I wouldn't have expected that most of our fleet would be grounded and that I'd be working for Morrison's. However, I'm having a great time meeting customers and colleagues and playing my part in feeding the nation. This was from a flight attendant. And his job, the pivot that he made was finding where he could help people and working directly with people. And he had a really great way to do that. And so I'm really happy to now bring in Linda Glass. And Linda, a lot of you knew from Starbucks HR, Partner Resources, but Linda has a story that goes way before that and how she got into this. So first, welcome, Linda.
Hi, Marty. I think your new job is actually going to be webcast commentator.
Yeah,
this is going to be your medium, dude.
So Linda, tell us, let's go back a little bit. Tell us about your story. Where was your first pivot? And when you first told me that, when I first heard this story, I was really blown away. I didn't know this when we were first in Starbucks.
Uh-oh, which one was it? Which one are you referring to?
Well, it was the one that started back in creative services, the marketing.
Oh, right, okay. Honestly, you guys, I've had so many pivots. And before I say that, Marty, what was interesting listening to your examples, people don't change jobs and positions, and what we do does, right? I mean, if everybody goes back to your, all the things that you've done, like I've been an elf for Santa, I've been a horse wrangler, I was in creative services, I used to work in the Department of Good Ideas at Eli Lilly. Like what I've done has changed. Who I am has not. Where I've chosen to spend my time and be intentional has created the focus for me and allowed me to pivot. One of those times that I was sharing with you was when I was actually in the Northwest Zone. So I see some former Northwest Zoners on the call. Hi, Sherry. And it was really, I was at a point where I had come back from the UK where we were just doing all sorts of amazing first time things, being really scrappy, and having our hands in all sorts of building and imagining. And I found myself, I think we were implementing Siren's Eye at the time, if anybody remembers that, which basically I would end up in my car, like driving down the highway, going to make sure people had the right product in the right place on the shelf. And I was like, oh my gosh, I call that a bad 5:15 moment where you look at your watch and you go, oh my gosh, was that seriously only 5 minutes of work? Because it felt like 15 hours. It was not suited for me. So I started to say, okay, is it time to leave? Like, what should I do? Should I get a different job? And my head was kind of spinning. And like you, I went to a mentor. So I went to Paul Tuig and I said, okay, here's the deal. I know I want to grow as a leader. do I need to leave? Like, what should I do? How do I do that? And I'd already invested in the company, and I thought, well, it's kind of stupid to leave now. How do I find some place here where I can grow as a leader in a really meaningful way? And that's where, honestly, it was some self-coaching, I guess. I just challenged myself to become functionally agnostic and just started to look for where are the great leaders. Like, I was really clear about what it is I wanted to do and the experience that I wanted to have and what I wanted to learn. And I knew it wasn't in marketing anymore. Bless marketing, always had challenges in terms of, revolving door of leadership, hard role to have. And through Paul, I looked at store development, HR was doing all sorts of transformation, and I started exploring and had an opportunity to pivot. They had seen the results and things that I had delivered in marketing, and they needed someone to come and build out recruiting. At the time, we didn't have a recruiting function, which when I tell that story to people, they're like, that's insane. Yes, it's true, we didn't. So I thought, you know what, I'll do it for a year and I'll try it. If I don't like it, I'll go back. But my goal here is to grow as a leader. But I fell in love with it. And that really led me on the path that I'm on today, which is in the space of talent.
But had it not been for your mentor and having people to talk to, where would you be today?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting. I also credit this to Starbucks. My first year at Starbucks, I had 5 bosses. My first boss was gone within the first week. And both from me changing and also just the rate of change of people in the organization, I had 17 bosses in 11 years. So early on, I really recognized, I get attached to my boss and be like, oh, this is my new person. And then they would move. So I decided early on that for me, I really needed to create kind of my peer network. Sherry was one of those. I would have a, peer network. I would have people who were ahead of me that were mentors that I could go to, people outside of the organization that could give me some perspective without any attachment to the politics. But I recognized that early on that I couldn't depend on one person. I had to really have a good advisory board.
So Linda, let's start at the beginning. Our lives have changed. The things that we have done before.
Guess what? It's always changing, but now it's just really super big.
Well, now we can't ignore it, right? It's impossible to ignore.
And it's scary. Scary. I don't mean to make light of it. It's so unknown.
So you're thinking about changing, your life has changed, your career may be on hold. Where's the first place that we start?
Yeah, and I do want to tap into that. I mean, it is a very serious time, and it's creating a lot of real uncertainty. And so naturally what our brains do is going to a place of creating safety. And so, there's all sorts of neuroscience behind it. I'm not a neuroscientist. I just, play one on TV. But we do know that our brains put up natural blockers to keep us safe. So the first thing that's happening for a lot of people in this heightened state of, fear is say, I better just hunker down, or am I going to be able to pay my mortgage, or I should just go down this path. And while some of those things aren't wrong, it's creating a lot of noise and scattered direction. So what I coach people to do first and foremost, and this is, by the way, Marty, an exercise that you can do regardless of your embarking on trying to discover a pivot. It's just a really good, healthy exercise, period, is that when you're in a state of overwhelm of all this noise, just do a data dump. Just start to get it all written down. Put it all, I like to use Post-its. Write them all on Post-its. Get everything landed on the paper. Everything from, I call them the shoulds and the yeah buts. Yeah, well, I should just stay where I am because, at least I have a job, or yeah, but I've already, dedicated a lot of time to this career, and if I pivot, it's not going to work. Or there are some things that you might write down that are real requirements, hard requirements. I need to make this much money. I need to have healthcare. I need to support aging parents. There could be some really inspiring thoughts swirling, right? They're not all limiting beliefs or hard requirements. There could be some things like, oh, I could talk to, I could talk to Marty about when he worked at such and such, or maybe I should talk to, Susan about her company. That seems like a cool company. But you need to land all of those and get them, put them at bay so that you can step into exploration. It's kind of like, I don't know, many of us have walked into brainstorming sessions before, and we want to open up to possibility. And there's that one guy who says, yeah, we tried that before and it didn't work. And you're like, or the woman that's like, you'll never get budget for that. It's like, okay, then it's done. Like, it's a deal breaker for any exploration. So first is landing that swirl for sure.
So when you say land that swirl, what do you mean by that? Well, how do you do that?
So once you get everything on Post-its, I always tell people, like, put them into those different categories. There might be some real things you need to act on now. Like, there might be something that's like, exploring refinancing, your mortgage, to really understand your financial position. Okay, pull out the few things that you might need to act on now. Take everything else, put it in a nice little folder, and put it away for later. You can come back to it, because there probably are some hard requirements in there that you want to consider. But as you're stepping into just pure exploration of what's possible, those aren't going to serve you right now.
Okay, so I've narrowed it down. I have a file folder full of stuff that is going to freak me out later, but I have stuff now that I'm going to work on for right now.
Yeah, and part of it is just the comfort of landing it and getting it down. I've done some work with Brene Brown, and one of the things that she talks about is, if you name an emotion, it loses its power, right? So some of these limiting beliefs and things that we have in our head, there is some release just simply in getting them written down. You've captured them, you can come back to them later, but they're not going to serve you in this moment. So once you do that, then you can start to step into exploration.
So how do you begin that exploration? I have this list of stuff that I need to do now, so I've narrowed it down. I've maybe prioritized it. What's next?
So I would say our most natural inclination is to go to solution. And I think that's just how we're wired, particularly anybody who's worked at Starbucks. It's like, got a problem, solve. Like, let's get her done, right? And so we tend to go straight to, oh, what's happening on LinkedIn, and I need to work on my resume, and maybe I should do, get on Indeed. And all of a sudden you're doing this, what I call this external data dumpster dive that is of no service. So resist that urge. And I love the term pivot, although overused, but your definition was great, because what it talks about is that you're not doing like a swing. You're doing a pivot off of what's, you're anchored into something that's really important. And so the opportunity is to start with what's most important to me. And I coach people to look at three core things. One is, and you talked about that, Doug talked about it, values. Do you know what your values are? A lot of people would say, oh yeah, I know what my values are. But do you know what they look like when they're in action? Could you identify it when somebody is living in action at work? Could you correlate a decision that you've seen made by an organization or a leader to a value? So I think that's really important. It's not just like, how do you, what's in your heart? It's like, what's in your heart? How is that expressed, and how can you observe that? That becomes a real key, I think, anchor and decision making, decision point for anything that you do for your job.
What are the other keys to think about? As far as now, I got that list of act on now. Values was one. What are the other key criteria?
The other things that I ask people to look at, so if I know what's in my heart and what's most important to me, do I know what my strengths are? So a lot of us have done strength finders. I really love strength finders. I've played with a ton of different assessments, and there are great ones that can give you insight on, the type, personality types or preferences. Why I like strength finders is really, this philosophy makes sense to me, commonsensical. We're all born with innate talents. Sorry, my hair is distracting me. We're all born with innate talents that when brought to light and focused on, they actually become strengths. And I find that earlier in our career, we, and it's not right or wrong, but we tend to look to other people to tell us what our strengths are. Hey, you're really good at that. You're like, oh, I must be strong at this. Like, okay, cool. Project management was one of those for me. Like, everybody's like, yeah, you're a really good project manager. It's like, yeah, I can do it, but I don't love it. Like, it's not really an innate strength of mine or talent. So really going into Strength Finders, they have a great report where you can get a comprehensive all 34 now. And it gives you really good language to talk about what your strengths are, regardless of whether I'm the horse wrangler or, you know, in marketing, right? But these are the strengths that I have. And it also gives you permission to bless and release the things that you're not good at, which I love too. Like, just let's acknowledge that those are on the bottom of your list. You suck at it, you don't like it, you'll never be good at it, so let's not be talking about it. Like, it gives you some permission and language.
But aren't we taught to shore up our weaknesses?
Of course. And that's bullshit. Sorry, friends, if I'm swearing and offending anyone, but yeah, I mean, you know, we're conditioned that way through school. We've got a GPA, you have to be good at everything, right? That means that's, you know, if you're good at everything. And little Marty brought home his report card and he's getting a C in math, so now he's got to get little Marty a tutor. And we're throwing money after bad. Like, that's never going to be your thing. So, and then we do it with, you know, traditionally with performance reviews. But it's a really good thing for you too, when you start to look at opportunities, like, what percentage of this posting or this job description as I know it is going to leverage my strengths?
So values, strengths, anything else?
Yeah, the last thing that I ask people to look at, if I think about strengths and values as really the core of your pivot, I ask people to think about aspirationally, how do they want to feel at the end of the day? You know, it used to be that we did these vision boards. I kind of think a la the 90s or 80s, right? Where it was like, you know, dynasty, big house and the flashy car. And, you know, it was all about consumption. And I think now more than ever, we're getting clear that it's not about consumption. It's about, how do I want to feel in my life day in and day out? And am I surrounding myself with people and experiences, companies, problems that I'm solving that are really nurturing those feelings? Like for me, and those change every year. Like for me this year, I had to, they're not totally shifted. Like one of mine is I want to feel vibrant and fit. Part of that's like, I'm 51 now, right? So I got to double down on that, and I want to. But I also added the word tranquility, because I recognized that last year, without that in my intention and my aspiration, the way I structured my work, what I was getting consumed in, like I was spread too thin, right? So it helps create, both that and values help create some really smart intention as well as boundaries for you.
So I want to go back to something that you talked about with your strengths. That seems to be a key part of where to start in your pivot. So how do you do an honest assessment of what your strengths really are?
Well, Strength Finders, so that is an actual assessment. I will shamelessly promote myself. It is on my website, in my resources, so you can click through there. And if you have kids, by the way, my teenager just did it. They have it for students. And so you can purchase a report there and then be coached on it.
What about our own personal feelings on that? Sometimes you do. I love Strength Finders. It confirms some things for me, some things that I probably didn't even want to admit to myself. But what about your own personal feelings? Aside from a psychological instrument that you might take, what does your opinion count for?
Well, I think, you know, it's not about taking Strength Finders and saying, this is me, right? Any of these exercises that you do are data points to really help inform your viewpoint, right? So I just look at it as an invitation to explore what my strengths are. And then is there language in there or things that I'm like, yeah, that really describes who I am, or that's really me. How do I leverage that? And then what do I also want to add in? I mean, I think part of it, Marty, is, you know, it's one thing to say, for instance, my strength is as an arranger, where I see multiple people and opportunities. I know how to pull people together. I might say that how it manifests in work could be different than you, right? And I like to do it in this environment, in this type of company, when I'm solving these types of problems. That's where you really come into it, right?
So on your own personal strength finders, when you did that and you were thinking about, well, today you have your own company, Glass Talent, what were the strengths that you found inside yourself that gave you the confidence and the courage? Because it takes courage to do this, for sure, and the courage to find your niche.
It's I'm pausing for a little bit because I don't know if it was courage, audacity, stupidity. I mean, all of these sort of, I think the underpinning, honestly, has been, what do I need to know? How much do I need to know to be able to take a leap of faith that I'm comfortable with? So like Doug talked about, and I was like, Doug, like if somebody told me like, you're going to start your own company, I would have been like, no, I'm like the corporate girl. I'm never going to have my own company. That's not going to happen. But it wasn't until I fell in love with coaching and I went through that and I was like, I've got to do this. How can I do this? What would that look like? It was a clear, like, I want to do this. Now, what are my other requirements and how do I make it work? I know I couldn't do it at Starbucks. I knew that I needed to get out and get into multiple industries. So then it was like, okay, how could I do that in a way that allows me to take that leap of faith and a risk in a way that meets all my requirements? And it's not always like, it's all like works out perfectly. I mean, sometimes you have to compromise. Like Steve, my husband, who some of you guys know, I started my business in 2008 in the spring. He gets laid off in the fall. He starts doing woodworking. Cool. Not, it's not like it's hugely lucrative, right? And so we're both like trying to figure this out. But when we looked at our full requirements for our family, healthcare is a big nut. How are we going to do that? So he said, you know what? I'm going to go do a part-time barista because I know I can get that from Starbucks and do this at the same time, right? So I think part of it is like, really getting clear around what your requirements are, so that that creates confidence in understanding what level of risk you're taking.
So when you say requirements, are requirements the reality of what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so once I work with people to say, okay, what's your core? So we look at your values, we look at your strengths, we understand aspirationally how you want to feel in your life. I pause on that for a moment to go back and say, okay, let's get concrete examples of when those have really come to life in past experiences you've had, people that you've worked with, because I think that's a really important connection point for people. So it's not just all about the woo, but it's like, well, what does that look like day in and day out? Then we layer in, okay, let's talk about real requirements. And I have a whole sort of brief that you would go through. It's kind of like if you were doing a creative brief, or I've done a zillion RFPs. That's probably where it comes from, right? Where it's like I'm going to go for a vendor. I got to know what my must-haves are. I got to know what our requirements are. And so this is really what that's about. And it's everything from type of company. Is it important that it's a global company? Does it need to be a certain stage of maturity, a certain size, B Corp, nonprofit? Like, what are the things that are really important for you that you have a firm opinion on? What are the things you're like, I don't really care either way? Or some things you're like, gosh, I don't know, maybe I'd like to explore that further. Cultural attributes and requirements, like what's really important for the culture, and that's where you go back to your own values, right? I had somebody I was working with who inclusivity is a really critical value for her, and when she talked specifically about how that showed up in a company, she had specific requirements. Like she wanted to see a woman in leadership, she wanted to see specific programs, she wanted to have data pointing to key decisions that were made around inclusivity. Unlike a partner I talked to last year, a potential partner who showed me their values on a rock because he didn't know what they were. And he's like, look, we have inclusivity. And he's like, yeah, we like to include people. I was like, oh my God, no. No idea what his values, right? Then there's the hard attributes. And these are the conversations, they're not always easy, right? That we need to have with our family members, other people that depend on us or require support from us. So everything from salary, healthcare, flexibility, remote working. Guess we all get to do that now. Works with a guy who's like, deal breaker, will not get on the 405 again. So once you kind of get through all of those, then it's about, okay, what are my deal breakers? How do I prioritize? How do I really know, like, these are things that I absolutely need to have? It helps start to narrow your focus and also informs where you need to do some more exploration.
But in the current environment, are the options are going to be restricted, don't you think? So the attributes, the deal breakers become more important, less important?
I think they change over time, right? So I think that's why it's important to really kind of have that broader conversation. You know, for Steve and I right now, you know, he's in real estate. I have my own business. We're kind of back to where we were in 2008, you know? And so we have to go back and say, okay, what are our requirements? Can we still do this? Will we need to have another revenue channel? What will that look like? But just having it down and having those conversations gives you the information so that as things, I mean, it's continually shifting out there. Like, I mean, you even talked about, like, we're going to have whole new areas of business that pop up that we don't even know about yet. And on that side, I'm kind of sickly excited because I do find that really fascinating. But if you're, the one thing that you can control is being clear about what you need and what's important to you. And then as things start to come forward or you're looking at opportunities, you're really clear about where you can and can't compromise.
You brought up an important point that I want to go back to a second ago. You talked about your husband and the importance of a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Up to now, we've been talking about looking inside ourselves.
Yeah.
So you take the instrument, you take the strength finders, you think about what you want your future to be, you make your lists, but how important is it to talk to other people as part of this process?
Well, I think you have to be careful at first. And here's why. I think that we spend a lot of, as I said, we spend a lot of time being conditioned to look to other external evaluations of who we are and what matters most to us. And so it's not to say it's exclusive of others, but particularly if you're, you know, in any sort of caretaking position, the first thing that we turn to is, what does everybody else need? And then let me see how I can be served in that. You know, it getting clear about what's important to you without having any noise or clouding around that, I think is critical first. Now, I will say, it's interesting. Marie Kondo said this recently. You guys are sparking joy. She's going to be sparking joy at work, or she already is. I was like, she better not be doing career coaching, but she's cleaning up your office. But she actually said, I think it was in the New York Times, she's like, you know, people get rid of all this clutter and they get really clear about what's important to them, and all of a sudden they're like, this job's not working for me anymore, right? It forces some hard conversations about what's working, what's not, new expectations on boundaries. And so it's not all about like, let's run through these templates and you're going to have easy peasy conversations, but at least you're grounded, you know. And Steve going back to Starbucks, did he go back going, yeah, I'm going back to Starbucks? No, but he was also really clear. Like, they kept, it's so funny because we were in Austin. They're like, you're really good at this. You should, like, do you want to be a shift supervisor? He's like, no. Like, he was really clear about why he was there, what the purpose was, and what his boundaries were, right? And how that was to serve our family. Yeah, but it's, you know, that's what partnerships are about, right? Is making, you know, collective compromise and agreement.
So we've made our lists, we have our values, we know what our strengths are, what aspirationally how we want to feel. So I have all these lists in this paper. Yeah. What's next?
So I take all those elements together, and really that is your brief, right? So when you think about, I want to be doing work that is honoring my values, leveraging my strengths, that can really foster and nourish the feelings that I want to have, and it needs to fit these requirements, right? So you're clear around what those are. Now, with every person I work with, it's a little different. It's not a perfect sort of Willy Wonka machine going one side, come out the other, and it's like, you will be a dentist, right? So it's not that, It's not that clean. But what it does inform is what you know to be absolute and true and what you don't. So for example, I worked with somebody who said, you know what, I guess it's not as big as a shift as I initially thought it was. And this person was actually able to go back inside their company and say, let me reposition myself. These are the things that I think I'm strong at. And this person even said, I'm going to have to totally move companies in industries because I want to work remotely and it's not supported here. What was ironic is that when we got into it, I started really talking to her about the people that she was leading that were in LA and she was in New York. And I was like, you're already working remotely. She was like, oh, I guess I am. So for her, it was about how do I really reposition inside my company? For somebody, it was, I'm really clear that I still want to stay functionally in this area. I'm really excited about this. But the company attributes had shifted. So that created a really sort of specific shift in the way that she positioned her resume, her LinkedIn, the type of company she was going to go and apply to. It gave her confidence as she was talking to those companies about what she wanted, what she didn't. I had another person, just as a final example, who said, I don't know enough to be able to make a clear pivot, but I know what I want to explore more. So this person actually decided that she was going to create new boundaries around her work that would allow for time and space for her to, she's in supply chain, for her to explore, what if I went down the path of data science? So she wanted to get a certificate and just sort of play in that space and get her, get a feel for it. She was also going to explore handbag design. Two totally different things. But she's like, I need to get my hands in it a little bit more before I can make a determination on whether it's enough for me to make a pivot. Interestingly, though, she did share that with her current company and they're paying for her certificate. This is, again, pre-corona, but for her data science exploration.
I could also see, I know myself, and so I know that my list would be really long, and some of it would be long-winded and convoluted. So how do you take your call from all of this information, something that becomes directional?
Yeah, I think what I've experienced, and whether you work with somebody like me, like a coach, or you work with another trusted advisor that doesn't necessarily have a stake in the game, right? Who has, because that can be it can kind of cloud it a little bit. But somebody like my sister, for instance, is a really good coach for me. So if I wasn't going to hire a coach, I would probably go to her and have her help me synthesize it. So that's what I do with people is say, okay, again, how much of this do we know is true? Where do you feel like you can go from here? And if you feel like you're ready to go looking for a specific position, then it's about, okay, let's put an action plan together. What needs to happen to bring that to reality? And then it's like, when I talked about the project management, this is about it. Here's the template. Like now we're going to really say, based on what you know, how do you create some action around it? And that's where the accountability comes in too. Yeah.
So at that point, what's your action plan look like? Is it over a specific period of time? Is it open-ended? Yeah. What does it look like?
Well, there's some things that it's like, I call it the daily vitamin. Like once you kind of, for instance, this one person I'm working with, who's looking for a specific opportunity, we started talking about, okay, what's your daily vitamin around marketing this product called You? Right? And so what are you doing on LinkedIn? What conversations are you part of? Who are you reaching out to and connecting to? So some of that is just ongoing, like what am I doing on LinkedIn? And then she also had some very specific people that, like Starbucks Network, are there people that I know that are in companies, now that I know the type of company that I want to work for and the size, do I know people that work in these types of companies? Who am I like making a list? Who am I reaching out to for, hey, I want to speak with you. I love the line, in the spirit of networking. Truly, that's what it is, right? So you're just like, look, I just want to connect and tell you what's up with me and see if you might be able to have some ideas. It could be then jumping into the job boards or going into specific industry niche job boards or associations. So very specific actions around making that happen. If you're still in heightened exploration, like a higher level of exploration, you're likely less about, okay, let me make sure my resume is tucked and tied, but it's probably more along those, let me network and informational interview and try to tease out some more information around some possibilities.
How long does this all take? It sounds like a long process. It sounds like something that could be months.
It depends on the person, honestly, Marty. I mean, I'm not one of those people who's like, this is, again, it's not totally prescribed in terms of the timing. It's really up to you how fast you want to or need to go. Some of the earlier stuff, I do want to say that even with some of the work that I've done around values and the desired feelings, once you land them, sometimes you have to sit with them for a little bit, right? You have to do some sort of, I got to let them marinate and wear them around for a little bit. And, I'm looking at it right now. It's on my board. It says clear. I'm like, is it clear? I don't think it's clear. Is it clear? No, like I want to feel clear. No, tranquil. Like it took me a while to get to tranquil, right? So some of those things take some marination. But it really is up to you how fast you want to move. And I don't tell anyone how fast they should or shouldn't go. And that's your life.
Great point.
Yeah.
So we have values, strengths, aspirations on how I'm going to feel. Is there any one of those that one-ups everything else? Is there any one of those that's
there's a hierarchy, in my opinion. The hierarchy is values, strengths, then aspirations, like how do you want to feel, right? I think at the end of the day, when you think about the most important decisions you've made, when you've walked away from a relationship or you've made a decision that's cost a lot of money or whatever it is, it's been a values-based decision. And when we're in the greatest dissonance in our lives, like the most acute dissonance that you feel, it's because you're out of alignment with your values. And so the clearer you can get around those and stay anchored in them, the more likely are the odds that you're going to attract work and people in to support that and nurture those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Linda, we only have a couple minutes left. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of wrap it up. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you? Anything you want to say that I didn't give you an opportunity to do?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. Not really. I mean, I want to acknowledge that it may in some ways sound simple. Like, I don't think anything I've said today is rocket science or anything that anyone hasn't necessarily heard before, but it's not necessarily easy. And it's not easy because these are the things that are most important to us, and often because they are involving other folks. So just, be kind to yourself, be compassionate. If any of you do art, I mean, this term, like staying in the messy middle of it, like it's gonna be like, it's not a sort of like light switch turnkey, I'm gonna do the work and here I go. Like, it's not always easy. It's not always, again, simple. It's not always easy. So just surround yourself with cheerleaders, good community. Yeah.
And that's what the Green Apron Alliance is all about. The cool thing is getting us back together again to share experiences and tap into each other's expertise, which is, we're really thrilled that we had you to tap into today. So I know that you have some work coming up that you may want to talk to everybody about. I think it'd be a great follow-up to what we talked about today.
Yeah, so talk about pivots, man. Okay, so it's funny, in 2008 when all this went down the last time, I definitely was doing career coaching because people needed it. A couple of years ago, people started coming forward for more career coaching. I've been doing executive coaching, and people are coming forward like, having what I call these meerkat moments. What do I want to do? I've kind of popped my head out and I'm not sure this is like, am I really doing what I should be doing anymore? Now there's been a forcing mechanism, right? People are either gifted the opportunity to explore, right? We're having furloughs and layoffs, or like people are asking the big questions. So it's kind of exciting because I've really hard pivoted to full focus on that. And I was starting to launch a program in January. And I was like, kind of like, oh, I'll do a soft launch. I'm like, we're going, right? So this is the very last day tomorrow is to register for my online course. It's called Get Unstuck, 6 Weeks to Get Unstuck, Design and Realize a Life and Career You Want. It's a cheesy title, I know, but I will tell you that, like, I was like, what do I call this thing? But whenever I talk to people, they're like, I'm stuck. I don't know how to get through this process. It's a small class size. So right now I have 7 people, and I'm not going to take more than 12. But if you want to sign up, you've got to do it tomorrow. We're going to have 5 weeks of content and group coaching, and then the final week is that synthesizing week. You know, it's going to be one-on-one with me to really say, okay, now what do we know? And how do we want to create some really meaningful action around it? So you can come to my website. Hopefully we can post it, but I will tell you it's at glasstalent.com /get-unstuck, I think is the way it works. Or you can always just email me, linda@glasstalent.com.
Cool. Well, thanks, Linda. Congratulations on your new business. I know you've been successful. You've had a big impact on a lot of people. And
I love it.
I personally miss working with you.
Aw, yeah, it's been super fun to reconnect.
Yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah.
So just in wrapping up, know your values, know what your strengths are, know how aspirationally you want to feel, great places to start. Next week, we're going to follow this up with another great webinar that Doug is going to tell you about in a minute. But thanks for your time, everybody. It was really great seeing you. I love the faces. Would love to hear more from you. Let us know what you would like to see coming up in the future, and we will make sure that we curate a series that is going to make a difference for you as Starbucks partners and professionals. Linda, I know
Hey,
you want to say
Marty.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we've got 3 minutes. I'm happy to, if anybody has any questions, or stay on longer, unless you have a hard stop. But if people have questions, I'm happy to just offer some support right now. And I also wanted to say that on my website, a lot of the things I referenced are those resources. Like, so if you want to go self-serve, a lot of those resources are there for you to dig into, from Brene Brown to Strength Finders. All of that stuff is there.
So I'll echo Linda. Any questions? I've been monitoring the chat board. You
Good.
haven't seen
I was wondering,
any questions come up specifically, but if anybody has any questions,
Kelly has one.
go, Kelly. You're on mute.
Hi,
There you go.
everyone. Linda, thanks for sharing all those words of wisdom. And I wasn't going to say anything earlier, but I am a neuroscientist, and and I specialize in longevity and coping with transitions as we age. So you hit all the stressors, all the trigger points, everything from layoffs to deaths in the family to pandemics. But what I wanted to do is just, I guess, highlight one thing that you said, and also provide a resource. So I'm just pressing the return button now to everyone. So I do work with the World Health Organization, and I've just pivoted to my own company, and thanks to Marie Gill, who's my co-partner, sharing some of these resources. And you really stress the importance of values. And so when I coach people and I do executive coaching, people get so stressed out figuring, well, what's my values? And when we talk about neuroscience, these unpredictable situations or these growth opportunities really do trigger the fight or flight chemistry in us. And that can really, really be a blocker to understanding what our values are. So for some people, it takes 6 months, a year, even to disengage from that fear and that flight. And the secret to your values is looking within. And for some people, and I've provided some of the stuff we've published at the WHO about exercises of how to kind of read your gut and give labels, as you said, to how you're feeling. Because it takes us all those years of adult training and childhood and training to kind of even trust our gut and see what comes next. And so getting from reacting to values and action is really often hard. And so for some people, you might just be in that pain place, and it may take a little while. So I just wanted to throw that transition, I wanted to throw that resource out with you, to you all. It's a caricature, it's with the World Health Organization, because you can imagine some people are fighting these stressors because they're in war-torn countries, or there's been droughts, or you've lost, you've got ethnic or religious pressures to influencing you, and of course a pandemic. This just came out a couple of weeks ago, the response to the pandemic, and we have strategies. This is what I use in coaching, about towards and away movements based on my training. And so I'm happy to share that with you all.
That's so cool. And isn't it true, Kelly? It's funny. I have a neurologist that's going to be in the course next week. And I said to her, I was like, okay, you can truth tell me. Don't say it, in the course, but truth tell me afterwards. I'm making stuff up. It's so great to have your expertise. Isn't it true that our brains, we, in that split second reaction or gut decision, we're not discerning between whether it's a real tiger or a paper tiger.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's instinctual. It's
right?
instinctual. It's our that's how we evolve, is to be able to react without overthinking things. Overthinking is our worst enemy in many ways. And I guess I'd also say that with the reaction, again, with these external pressures of, you got to make a mortgage payment next week, it's sometimes really hard to separate that out. And so having some time, having a trustworthy somebody as a third person, as you mentioned, really helps. I think the other key about the neuroscience part, which is I find with a lot of people, is that sometimes it's hard to identify how we're feeling because there's a stigma about maybe feeling scared, or there's a stigma about how we might feel, and it's even, you don't want to give it a label because you might be a little self-conscious or embarrassed.
Or it makes it real.
If you understand the neuroscience behind it, it puts us all on the even plane, because we're all wired, we're human, right? Yeah. And so if you understand the mechanisms of what's happening, I think sometimes that helps us be a little less judgmental on ourselves, because it's human nature.
Really,
anyway, I just want to share that.
That's fantastic, Kelly. Thanks for that. Thanks for the link. I'm definitely going to look for that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks. Great. Well, everybody, thank you again. This has been fantastic. A great way to spend the afternoon, the evening, reconnect with everybody. I'm going to pass it back to Doug to wrap it all up, and we'll see you again next week.
Linda and Marty, thanks so much. What a really incredible discussion, and really inspiring today for the We Move Forward event for What's Your Pivot. So just a plug, I reached out to Linda a few weeks ago because I had a client ask for a resume, and I hadn't done a resume in 4 years since I started Circle Alliances, and this is the product of the work, and she turned it around in like no time. So shameless plug, if you need your resume updated, Linda's the person to go to. She did an amazing job of telling my story.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I want to remind everyone that our May We Move Forward series continues for the next 2 Thursdays. Thursday, May 21st, 5 to 6 o'clock Pacific time, Navigating the Job Market. What will the job market look like post-COVID in moving forward? Join former Starbucks partner and HR executive Ann Shannon for a practical 60-minute discussion about leveraging our professional networks, tuning up your resumes and being prepared to make the great career move. So that's Thursday, May 21st at 5 o'clock. And then Thursday, May 28th, 5 and 6 o'clock Pacific time, Executive Insights, Tough Decisions. As each of us concentrates on keeping our careers intact, senior executives and business owners are making decisions that ultimately will determine whether their companies survive. Join former Starbucks partners and senior exec Shelley Copeland-Taylor, Andrew Alfano, and Genevieve Long for a straight-up 60-minute discussion about the tough choices they face every day. So some really good stuff coming up on Green Apron Alliance. Want to say thanks to everyone who's planning and putting all the great energy into this. Thanks again, Marty and Linda. And you guys, everyone, have a great evening and stay safe and stay healthy.